Okay, folks, look, I don't like to wait, and it's not an ideal time right now for me to discuss why I don't like intergender wrestling if the matches are competed like any other match. Now, there are exceptions. There can be a time when you have, rest in peace, China versus a male wrestler, Jeff Jarrett, and yes, that was a gimmick match, the good housekeeping match. China had amazing strength, and she was ahead of her time. And it was a very special circumstance that she had those intergender matches. And a couple of times they had China in intergender matches or tag team matches, whereas her and a male tag team partner versus two men wrestlers, and they didn't even promote it as a big deal. If you really look at that era, I think she teamed up with, I want to say either X Pac or Billy Gunn or Road Dogg or somebody, and it was like that. Um, Medusa would have been interesting if she had wrestled male wrestlers. I don't think she ever did, but she did have skirmishes and so forth. And yeah, you had your gimmick stuff like Missy Hyatt and Paul Heyman. But I think what's happening now is on this independent wrestling scene, the kids these days just see wrestling in a totally different way. These wrestling shows that are in bars with no chairs for the audience, 500 people. And I saw one of these matches. It was I believe the woman wrestler was in a tag team called the Cherry Bombs, and she was with NXT for a while, Abby Leith, and she wrestled Donovan Dijak, who's now with NXT. And honestly, um, they're both very good wrestlers, and they had a match, and I saw this match, and it was like Donovan, who's like 6'7", just flopped around like a fish for this lady who's about 5'2" or 5'3". And I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. And, people say, well, Rey Mysterio. Okay, okay, okay. Yes, Rey Mysterio is short. But Rey Mysterio's whole thing was that he was the high flyer, the luchador, the little big man who was the giant killer and beat Kevin Nash. So I get it. There's these crazy exceptions with male wrestlers like a Rey Mysterio, which would open up the floodgates. But when you open up the floodgates too much, and when the occasional becomes the ordinary, then everything is just thrown out the goddamn window. And I'm not speaking from a point where I have a dog in this race or anything, except that I'd like to see some semblance of dignity, some semblance of tradition exist in professional wrestling. And everywhere you look, Shane McMahon will winning the fucking tournament, and people say, "Oh well, it was a riz on the fans or a riz on CM Punk, best in the world, Shane McMahon." Well, how many goddamn rizzes do you have to live through these fucking days, folks? And look, this is not a. If anything, I'm thinking that if they did for WWE in particular, and not talking about any other promotion right now, but if WWE did an all women's weekly show, I think it would probably be better than the men's show. At least Raw, if they could limit themselves to a 2 hour show or even a 90-minute show, and I'm not 2 hour show, fine, 90 minutes, whatever the fuck. If you had and you could still have the women on both Raw and SmackDown. But if WWE constantly needs to give you more and more goddamn programming, why do this mixed match challenge, which just has this goofiness about it? Like, and you're wondering, oh, is Charlotte and Bobby Roode fucking? Like that's what the whole thing was the first season. Are these people fucking each other? They seem so flirtatious. But why not just have a woman's show? It would probably be very fucking good, and these women don't have to be marginalized or put in these 6 women tags or these 5-on-5 women tags. Take for instance this Natalia Ruby Riot thing. If you had an all woman show on the network, or even on one of these deals, and there's plenty of networks that need programming on cable, folks, or Netflix Prime or something. You could have this Becky, I'm sorry, not the Becky, but the Ruby Riot, Natalia situation go on for weeks and months and all that good shit. Um, Instead of just rushing it. That's what I said in one of my rants. Or it wasn't a rant. I was talking with Frank on the OWN wrestling discussion. We had this, hour-long conversation about all things wrestling tonight, and I was saying that, okay, the very first time fucking Natalia brings her father's sunglasses out, that's when Ruby Riott smashes them. Why didn't they have her do that for 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months to build those glasses up so that you have an emotional investment. That's the key term, folks, emotional investment. Going back to emotional investment, applying it to these things, when I see a 5'3" woman throwing around a 6'7" guy like a fish, and he doesn't just backhand her and slap her, then yeah, it feels a little choreographed, a little wrestling-esque. And that's why you have at that exact venue 250 people watching a wrestling show instead of 25,000 or 20,000. So yeah, you could have Baby Doll beat up Jim Cornette in 1986 because he jacked her in the fucking stomach with a racket and threatened her ability to have kids. Look that one up for all you assholes have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you want to move forth and have Becky Lynch versus fucking Seth Rollins one-on-one, well, first of all, Becky's probably better on the mic than Seth. I'll say that. And they're both athletic and great, but why can't, Becky Lynch have a program with Sasha Banks? We haven't seen that on the main roster. So my point of the matter is this, folks. It's really Kelly Klein, great female wrestler, very powerful woman, both spiritually and physically. She's the one causing all this. Not causing it, but bringing the debate to my attention. And so this is my thought-out statement to Kelly Klein. I'm a fan of yours, a big fan of yours. I'd rather see you wrestle Tessa, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, even Bayley, who I think is highly underutilized. Alicia Fox is highly underutilized. There's a hell of a lot of great women wrestlers out there. We don't need to gimmick this thing. And so people just need to have some goddamn respect for the way that wrestling should be fucking presented. That's what it goddamn comes down to, in my opinion. I could be fucking wrong, but I'm not. MikeMessier.com, once again, FightHub.net has all the Mike Messier rants on wrestling, and so forth and so on. I'm very upset.